Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my stream. My name is Ariana. I am the co-director of the Consent Academy, a Seattle-based nonprofit that aims to promote consent as part of everyday life. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope, yeah, like I said, I hope you're having a great day. My very cute kitty, Babby, is enjoying the heater because it has gotten quite cold here, and we're going to heat at least one room in the house. Um, yes, hopefully the stream is working okay. Oh my God, Babby is so cute. She's lying here on the heater. Oh yes, making a big biscuit as I pet him. Okay, I'm gonna get too distracted. Anyway, welcome, welcome. Um, where was I? Yes, today we're gonna talk about a bunch of lovely things. We're gonna finish up the section on that we've been talking about on autonomy and death and dying a little bit. We're gonna touch on that a bit more. We will still talk pretty regularly about autonomy and aging because it's really important. Just, as much as a lot of us like to pretend, we are all gonna get old someday if we're lucky, right? Hi, Ditibron. Oh, thank you so much, Dustin, for the subscription. I really, really appreciate that. To Tibron, you said happy Tuesday, everyone. It's pretty windy here, and I'm finally using my heater at home as well. Yeah, it was just too cold. Like, I would just spend so much time just like, anyway, before I turned the heater on, my hands were just getting so cold that it was hard for me to like type. Like, they started getting kind of stiff, and I was like, all right, I just actually have to put the heat on. And my cats are incredibly pleased. Only heating one room for now, pretty much keeping the door shut. Luckily, I have a litter box in here and everything. So my cats are not too upset and they have access to water. Um, Gotta, take care of my cat's autonomy as well, even if I need to shut them in the room with me. Anyway, I am very excited to chat today. Like I mentioned, we're going to finish up talking a little bit about sort of lessons from people who are dying and how it can help us sort of like better connect to our own sense of internal consent and autonomy, but also how we can do right by people who are in the process of dying or are likely to die at some point in the near future simply because of age. And then we're going to talk about the idea of the third place. And I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on that, probably a couple weeks, talking about third places and friendship and why they're great and fun. And I would love it if you all would share some of your favorite third places when we start talking about that. I don't know what's happening with the chat room. It just keeps telling me, welcome to the chat room. And that's why I'm like, is the stream okay? Is everything fine? Oh, I know what it is. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it says the reconnection was successful again. Hopefully you all can hear me. If you didn't hear what I said, I realized what was happening is I accidentally left my VPN on. Um, I don't usually do that. I don't know why it happened this time. Normally I'm really good about turning my VPN off before stream. Just totally forgot. Okay. I'm gonna say the line. I'm very tired today. I didn't sleep very well last night. I had a hard time falling asleep, but I'm feeling really chipper. I think that's one of my like life strengths, even when I'm like desperately tired, which I'm not desperately tired, I'm just a little tired. I'm really chipper. Also, I got two books today. €1 a piece. One is a book by the sci-fi author Ian Banks, and it's called Complicity, and I'm very excited for that. And the other one is the book Obedience to Authority by Milgram. I'm a big fan of Milgram's research. Milgram's did the sort of obesity, or not obesity, obedience, sorry, similar words, obedience studies many, many years ago where people had to electrocute people, but they weren't actually electrocuting people. They were just testing how much the person who thought they were electrocuting somebody would continue to basically torture someone if someone wearing a lab coat basically told them it was okay to do so. And, the research was very, very controversial because of the fact that they essentially were tricking all of the participants. And like a lot of the participants felt very upset and felt like, had I known what was really happening, I wouldn't have done this. But that's kind of like the point of the experiment, right? Like, yeah, of course, if you had known, it was just to see like how much harm you're willing to inflict on another person when you're being given orders. Anyway, I think he did a lot of other really good research, and he came up with this idea of like the agentic personality, which is like a personality state in which you are acting as an agent for a different authority and you kind of let go of your own personal power and agency. So it's where like when you're talking to someone who works in, say, customer service or is at the front desk, and you have a very sort of like reasonable request, and the person might normally feel for you and genuinely want to help you, but in this role that they're in, they kind of just say, well, like, it's out of my hands, it's not up to me, it's up to my supervisors. And while that can be true, Milgram really was arguing that this is like a different, like, sort of psychological state. Kind of meshes pretty well with the idea of field theory. A lot of this stuff is my jam. I think I've mentioned before, like, my focus in psychology was interpersonal violence, especially group violence, and sort of like the how and why group violence happens. How do we prevent it? As I've mentioned many times, it makes me very fun at parties because I can talk a lot about genocide. Um, real goth kid shit. It's not just the fashion and the pale skin. It's kind of my whole vibe. Anyway, so I'm very excited because I finally got that book. It's been on my wish list for a long time, and I found it used on a secondhand website for €1, and I was like, yes. So I ran over and got it today. And so I'm excited to finally read it. And anyway, those are all the main updates for me. Now for the little surprise that I have. My two lovely Thanksgiving cactuses are in full bloom right now, and I just want you to get to see how cute they are. Look at this. This is like, if you can't see it very well, it's just the slightest pale pink. Like the outer bits are the white balance isn't super great, but like they're very white. And then inside you can see it gets like pinker. And then this little bulb thing here is like this really nice hot pink. And they're just so interesting. So interesting. Yeah. Yes. And that's one. And then my other bigger one, you're gonna have to give me a second. Let me pick it up. Is really hot pink flowers. And it's just really lovely how they bloomed right on time. I really just appreciate how pretty it is. I also have a Christmas cactus that I is dead. I don't know why my Christmas cactus like bloomed in June. It bloomed last Christmas as well, but then it suddenly bloomed in June and then died. And I don't know what I did to it. To really get them to bloom nicely, you have to like water starve them sometimes and then really water them because this type of cactus is actually a jungle cactus. So it's got to have like a wet and a dry season. So you have to have certain times of year where they like don't really get any water, and then other times of year where they get a lot. Um, and I'm not an expert on any of this. I just read some guides online. But look at how pretty it is. And I also have some Easter cactuses, which bloom in the spring. So it's really nice because I just kind of have like slowly over the course of the year, just really beautiful blooming things. And yeah. Anyway, let me catch up on the chat. Um, I did not know that, Tiburon. I did not know that they don't necessarily need soil. They grow clinging to tree trunks in forests and jungles. I knew that they grew in forests and jungles, but I didn't know they grew on trees. Um, yeah, my Christmas cactus I'm trying to save. I like took the bits that were still not sad because it really like collapsed very suddenly, and I like have been rooting them, and some of them have put out roots. So hopefully I can recover, but I doubt it's gonna bloom this Christmas. It's in recovery mode. Um, Recently, my family just exchanged a bunch of cuttings of our like great 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 grandmother's Christmas cactus that's like still alive. Hello, Svenix, welcome. Um, anyway, it's great. And Svenix, since maybe you just got here, I just want to show you my Christmas cactuses or Thanksgiving cactuses. They're so pretty. I love them. I love my plant babies. I wish I were better. Oh no, my camera's out of focus now. Come back, camera. Come back. Uh, it'll fix itself in a second. I wish that I were better at taking care of plants. I have a routine and I just stick to the routine. And I know I have a couple of plants that I have to water, you know, more than the others. So I just usually water it once more per week than the other plants. Hopefully, yes, it's back in focus. But it is a difficult skill to have. And there are a couple of plants that I've tried so many times to like. I like ferns a lot. I think ferns are really beautiful. But they are weak ass little bitches. They are very sensitive and die very fast. I do not know why, especially maidenhair ferns. You have to keep it so humid that, like, unless you're keeping them in a little humidity chamber or you just want it to be like 80% humidity in your house all the time, it is not worth it. It is not, don't do it. Get a fake one so you get the pretty. And that's what I'm going to do from now on with ferns. The rest of these guys, like, I got a bunch of ficuses in my house. I bought them all used and they're great. I've got this Monstra that I got actually from the person who lived here beforehand. She just didn't want it anymore. Um, yeah, I got a ton of plants. Uh, Plants and books are the main way I decorate my house. Um, I do think ferns would like to live in the bathroom with the steam from the shower. Unfortunately, though, our shower room doesn't have any windows. So there'd be no way for it to get light except when we were in there and turned the overhead light on, which doesn't do nothing for plant. It will still provide some of the light that they need. An LED would be better because LEDs are like actually good for that. Speaking of which, if you ever want to get plants and really take care of them in the winter or like grow them and you don't get a lot of direct sunlight, like this apartment has a south facing window technically, but it's like in an inner courtyard, so it actually doesn't really get very much direct sunlight. And then we have like a couple of east facing windows in the hallway, and they get a little bit of direct sunlight in the summer, but only a little. So like we have almost no direct sunlight in this apartment, and so you need to supplement that. Pretty much all plants, even plants, this is totally a tangent, even plants that they're like grows in low light or like, they need medium bright light or something. Like there's all this stuff that says like you don't need to put every plant basically will benefit from some amount of direct sunlight. There's a really cute YouTuber who talks about plant health that made this very funny video of like someone putting like philodendrons in their closet and being like, but it has slats, so it's fine. Bright indirect sunlight, that's what it needs. No, like all your plants need some direct light a little bit. Like they can burn for sure. And like some plants will really change depending on if they get sun stressed or not. Like that's how you can control how much THC is in cannabis. It's like THC is produced as a byproduct of sun stress, from my understanding. Anyway, your plants all need some amount of direct light. it's okay for there to be seasonality to it. A lot of my plants that I have in windowsills and stuff, I'm going to be pulling out because it's going to be too cold and I have killed plants when there was like a cold shock overnight where like they were fine and then it just got so cold overnight that the plant just was like, I'm out of here. Um, and yes, exactly, due to run on pretty colors that a lot of succulents can turn are often caused by stress as well. You can also, if you like sun deprive a lot of succulents, they'll get really pretty, like super light green and kind of translucent. And they'll still be okay. They'll just get like really stretched out. Like plants that where there's like a ton of stem in between the leaves and they get really long. I think it's also called leggy. That means that they're like hunting for sunlight. But yeah, you can still do it and it looks cool. Anyway, there's a scam called grow lights. And you will find them on the internet and it will say like this is a grow light, and sometimes they're kind of nice because you can change whether it's white or red or this like purpley color, purpley blue color. And like, yes, technically some of those wavelengths of light are better for things like germination. However, the white light contains all of it, so it's fine. And you don't need to buy fancy ass grow lights because just buy LEDs. Just go to IKEA or whatever and get like an LED strip to put in your like whatever kind of thing you have your plants in, or even just on the walls and stuff can be enough. Um, and that'll be good, and your plants will be happy, and it'll be more than enough. Um, yeah, you don't need to buy grow lights, they're a scam. Anyway, end of my tangent. That's all I really wanted to tell you. I'm really excited about my Thanksgiving cactuses. They have outperformed my expectations in terms of their beauty this year. I really love plants. They make me very happy. I'm not really good at them. Like I said, I just kind of like have a routine and that's all I do. And like I water more when it's hot and I water less when it's cold. Like winter, I go down to once a week and not as much water. Um, there are a couple of plants that I'll still water a little bit more than that, like the ones that are really from much wetter places in the world. But yeah, it's fun. Okay, let's get on to the memes and the chats. I got this meme up here that I found, and it's by Lorminati. They have a lot of yeah, a lot of really good stuff. And I wanted to highlight their work because I really want to. They make a lot of really cute things that have got really, really positive messages on them. Um, and this one is really good. It's a little frog sitting on a mushroom with a coffee cup or some kind of hot drink, and it says, "It's okay if all you did today was survive." Um, yes, and they do ask that you don't repost and steal, meaning here like don't remove the watermark, don't try to steal it, don't post it again without them, without crediting them. And so that's really important in general for being a good patron of the arts. Okay, next, there's just this infrastructure, beautiful porn. This is in Utrecht in the Netherlands. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm sorry, I've got to resize this. It's a little off today because of what we were doing this weekend. This is just really beautiful. And I want to talk today a little bit about accessibility and for people who have any kind of mobility needs, or even just like being tired and needing to have accessible places and third places, and then also how that relates to autonomy and death and dying. So a third place, if you don't know, is basically a place that's not your workplace and is not your home that you can go to interact with other people. And they're very, very important because that's basically how most people make their friends, right? Like, and also not school, right? So one of the theories of like how we develop friendships is things like repeated exposure to each other in multiple contexts, surprise encounters. So like running into each other in like places where you didn't expect, because it sort of anchors this connection to each other. There's other things that are involved, but this is sort of like structural aspects. And when you have much more human scale communities, when you really have the ability to, get places, there's good, say, bicycle infrastructure. There's the public places feel like they're for public use. You're going to likely have more third places. So third places can be things like bars and cafes. They can also be bookstores that have like a lounge that you can sit in. They can be things like this this little guy right here, this food truck. Shops don't really count as much because third places are supposed to be places where you can go and relax and not to be doing work and not to be doing like in your home. And it's not very expensive. Libraries, community centers also count. But, bars and cafes can often count as well because they are not necessarily very expensive. You still spend money to be there, but when all things are said and done, it's not as expensive as it could be. So then this is just lovely, right? Like it's clearly very human scale. The brick, is maybe easier for maintenance. I don't actually know about the sort of economics of this. How good it would be for things like wheelchairs, I can't actually say. Oh, thank you, Citizen Shades, for following. Wonderful. So then here, just why do I feel like I know this username? Citizen Shades, I wonder if I know you from somewhere.
100%.
Anyway, I feel like I've like seen this username before, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna continue. This is just lovely, right? And you've got mixed use, you've got medium density, you've got exactly to Tiburon. Having a road that is completely level without raised sidewalks makes it more flexible to be used by pedestrians, bicycles, or cars as needed. It also just makes it, it creates, this looks like it's pedestrianized. And this looks like, okay, yeah, I think I know where I know you from. Anyway, this looks like pedestrianized. And this is good, right? We've talked a lot in previous streams about creating a sense of place. Do public spaces actually feel like they're meant for public use? Do people actually feel comfortable occupying those spaces? And it's tough because America and a lot of places in the world, but America especially, will have a tendency to have really strict no loitering laws. And what loitering means is like hanging out, basically. It's like you are staying in a space for an extended period of time with no discernible purpose, which is always like kind of a bullshit way of just saying, like, if you're not here to spend money or like have some official purpose, then you can't be here. And anti-loitering laws tend to be very classist, first of all, because they're just like, if you're not here to be a good consumer, then you need to get the fuck out. But also, yeah, there's just a lot of problems. So we're going to continue. I kind of said everything I wanted to say about this picture. The next one here is just, I live in Vienna, and I liked that there was this post on Reddit's left urbanism. I'm sorry, it's the how well this is cropped. It's a little messy today. Let me see if it's zooming out. Nope, zooming out didn't really help too much. Okay, so this one is a discussion about successful rent control, and the person asks, other than Vienna, what are good examples of successful rent control? Also, I'm gonna actually have to fix this. Give me a second. So you can actually see it better. Here we've got a picture in the background. It says Karl Marxhof, and that's in Vienna. It's the largest, or at the time, I think it still is, but it's the largest public housing ever created, and it's really cool. And it's also like during World War II, where the socialists held out against the Nazis in Vienna. Uh, yeah, I mean, Vienna was definitely like pretty Nazi. Austria, the whole like idea of like Germany annexing Austria is called the Anschluss, which is like the connection. It's not like, oh, they invaded us and took over. They're welcomed. But there were rebellions. Anyway, and I think we've talked a lot about here in Vienna, one of the things that's really a benefit and something that increases our autonomy here and our ability to say no to things, right, which then makes everything more consensual, is the fact that we have so much public housing here and we have rent control. So this person here is saying like that's not normally what's meant by rent control. They're not exactly accurate because there is rent control on all buildings built before World War II, like the building that I live in. So anything that was built before World War II, they cannot just charge whatever they want. There's actually really strict laws about how much per meter squared they can charge. There are things that affect it, like if the toilet is a shared toilet for the floor because it's a really old building, then they charge you a lot less. If like here, I don't have the ability to see far away, like I see into another big courtyard here and there's a tree and I see other buildings, they can't charge as much. If they haven't put in more like modern heating systems, they can't charge as much. But the point is that like there is actually rent control here. And having a combination of public housing, it's something like 50% of all the housing in Vienna is public housing. And it's not like shit. It's not like Section 8 housing in the US where it's like places, buildings no one wants to live in and places that nobody wants to live at where there's no accessibility. It's like even in the first district, the like only rich people live here district, there's public housing. And it just makes a huge difference. I know I've said this a million times on this stream, but it's just still, it's worth repeating. Okay, now a couple of silly pictures just for fun. This one we talked about a lot about on Sunday when we were talking about interacting with difficult family members, especially if we're going home for the holidays and how to manage it. And we talked a bit about things like in any interpersonal situation, there are sort of three potential goals that you can have. There's getting what you want, there's maintaining the relationship, and there's maintaining self-respect. Most of the time, these three things are in harmony with each other. Sometimes they are in conflict. And I think it's also a good time to talk about just like goals in general in life. And it can be tough. I like this comic because we have this idea that like you should always have goals, which is not necessarily true. You can be perfectly fine and not have any goals in life. But we often really hero worship people that we perceive as being exceptionally talented or exceptionally lucky. But I'm a lot more interested in the stories of people who just persist, who like have a goal and go for it. The exception being if it has to do with someone else's consent and they've said no, don't do the whole like I'm going to try to wear them down until they say yes to me. That's not very consensual. Citizen Shades, you say, I grew up in low-income housing from 7 to 14 in Scituate before moving to Rockland. My mom was in a lottery for 2 years to get it. It was difficult being poor in a wealthy area. Yeah, I mean, this is Massachusetts. I know Citizen Shades from high school. Citizen Shades is, I think, actually one of the people I dated in high school, if I remember correctly who this person is, which is just kind of funny. And we both met each other in Rockland, where we grew up, and it was an incredibly poor town, but it had a ton of really wealthy towns in the direct vicinity of it. Scituate being an example of this. And even within Rockland, though, there was like Section 8 housing, there were like projects which were, for very low income. And even within a poor town, there was discrimination against people who lived in that housing. And it was like seen as a dangerous place to go, which I mean, it actually kind of was. But yeah, the people were treated differently. And we had trailer parks as well. It was um, basically like a town that had a good taster for different types of poverty. But Scituate is one of the wealthiest towns in the whole state, I'm pretty sure. And so it's really difficult to be that close to it. And then I imagine even more difficult being actually living there and living in low income housing. Yeah, difficult. All right. So next one here. As you all know, I hate cars, so we're going to talk a little bit about cars today. I just need to. We haven't had a car centric chat for a little while, so I feel like it's time to just revive. Let's just make sure people don't forget what this is really about. And this person tweeted, and they're at M Pusto. Parent in a local mom group asks, quote, which neighborhoods are safe? I reply with fact that leading cause of death or injury or death for children is cars, and provide crash map. And so it's like a link to the transport agency where they live, showing where like most of the crashes happen. As we've talked about before, a lot of them are going to be on Stroads because they're not actually safe to cross. Like you just basically shouldn't. But a lot of times you don't have any choice. And this woman at Molly Fleck replied, quote, that's not what I meant. And then Mary replied again. She said, well, I mean, crime and feeling safe walking around. And I pointed out that in Madison, mugging, etc., is extremely rare, and you will more likely be hit by a car. And so I think this is one of those things that's like also really important to think about in terms of risk and like perception of risk to ourselves and how that can be hijacked to actually make situations less consensual. Because remember, one of the pillars of consent that we talk about at Consent Academy is information and understanding. Does everybody have all the information they need to give it an authentic yes or no? And does everyone actually understand that information? And we think about voting in local elections, city councils, town planning boards, all of this stuff. A lot of the time, we've kind of been tricked into believing certain things are more of a threat than they actually are. You can also see it with like Fox News coverage of like, the last midterms, not the most recent one, it was like the migrant caravans. And it was just like 24/7, like all of these scary people who are not actually scary are like coming, and there's so many of them, and we're going to be destroyed. And then as soon as the midterms were over, like the coverage stopped. And it's the same with like this past round, people were really focused on violence and, like violent crime and crime out of control. And there's all this like stupid bullshit saying like, oh, ending cash bail is just putting dangerous people on the street, as though the people who qualified for bail, if they could pay it, they would still be out on the street. That's the thing. You can say to somebody that you're not going to allow them to have bail. Anyway, I'm not going to go on that tangent. I'm going to save that one for another day. I think John Oliver also did a really good job talking about it. And you're right, Citizen Fear is a powerful force to distort reality and motivate people. And Dustin, you said midterms ended and then suddenly the cops started posting how safe their cities were. And this is one of those things that I don't actually have a source for it on hand right now, so forgive me, but violent crime rates actually tend to be higher in Republican-led areas. Now, this is not me saying that like it's inherently, Republican policies, are the cause of this, but that the areas where police tend to get more funding does not necessarily equate to safer. And there are a lot of things that go into crime, and ending cash bail is not one of those things. Cash bail is only about making it so that people who are not considered a risk to the community, bail is only to try to make sure you come back because you get the money back if you show up. And it's just to say, like, you might try to run away, but if we take a bunch of money from you, you're more likely to come back. And it's making sure that people who are potentially innocent don't have to sit in jail awaiting trial. And that's basically just something that only rich people get to do. And poor people sometimes can spend years waiting in jail for a trial. There's a lot. I mean, really, John Oliver did a very good piece about this, which is also brings me to another nonprofit I want to recommend. There's the Bail Project. And I like to, for example, every year for Mother's Day, I donate on behalf of my mom to the Bail Project to try to make it so someone else's mother gets to come home for Mother's Day kind of situation. And that makes a great holiday gift, donating to the Bail Project and then doing it on behalf of somebody else so that some people who are guilt or innocent until proven guilty do not have to just continue to spend time in jail waiting for court, and so that they can go home and be with their families for the holidays. I think it's a really good holiday gift to give. All right, next meme. This is just a cat at the top of a tree. This tree has been up for 20 minutes. I like it. It's a Christmas tree. Yeah, I don't really celebrate Christmas. We don't do Christmas trees, but one of the reasons why I'm glad we don't is because I'm sure my cats would absolutely demolish it. They would knock over my ficuses all the time, trying to climb up them. Even though it fell every time, they would still go because they were just like, I gotta climb this tree. Yeah. So, all right. So one of these other things is this is a really interesting graphic I came across. Here is its source. It's from a Bloomberg article I will put into the chat. And I think that this is really fascinating, but one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is it kind of goes and shows you, most of people in the world, like there's mass urbanization happening. We talked about that a little bit when we were reading some excerpts from the book Secular Cycles. But this mass urbanization means that these urban centers, which are in pink here, are where most of the country's population lives. And you can see that very little land is taken up by that. And it could even be smaller if we did a better job of densification and actually made, people less, suburban sprawl. But then it's kind of fascinating to see how, land is used, especially given that a lot of this is going to be public. And even if it's not public, it's still stuff that heavily benefits the public. And to think about how do we feel about how our land is being used. And this graph I really like because it kind of breaks it down into sort of big blocks. So you can see that like the single largest thing is cow pasture and range, but also sheep, goats, and others, horses, and a very small amount of farmsteads. We've got a lot of highway. A lot is taken up by highway, especially rural highways. And maple syrup makes it on, which is great. But, urban housing, and then we have rural housing. It's almost the same amount of land usage, but it's all added up here, despite the fact that like the urban housing hosts so much more of the population. Yeah. Wildfires has its own section as well. And so, I think that this is just, I don't have too much to say about this because it kind of is just building off of our discussion of peak soil that we looked at a long time ago and urbanization and, value per acre, things that we've kind of looked at a lot over time. But I think it's just good to keep it sort of fresh in our minds. And I recommend reading this Bloomberg article if you have any interest. Um, Aradin, you said our cats so far just like rubbing against the branches and haven't tried to climb them. Yeah, when I was a kid, we couldn't put any ornaments on the lower part of the tree because any of the cats we had would just like they'd smack it off and break them. So we had to like put all the ornaments like a third of the way up. And then Citizen Shades, you say, I gather from all I gather from this is that cows are taking over. All hell the cows. Yeah. I mean, in a way, they really are taking over because then you also have this huge other section here, which is just growing livestock feed. It's a lot. Also, golf. Sad. Um, this is one of the other things too, is because most of these farms, most of the farmland, as we've talked about before, is also big agribusinesses. And that are sort of managing land that is worked on by smaller farmers. And these can be very exploitative situations. And these people can end up in massive amounts of debt to the agribusinesses and have no way really to get out of it because they're constantly increasing the debt by saying, oh, you have to modernize this, you have to do this, you have to do that. And if you don't do it, you're going to lose your contract with us. This is especially true in animal products and farming for animal products. And it's just, there's a lot of non-consensual aspects to a lot of this land usage. Gonna kind of leave it there. And then the next one, back to hating on cars. Almost time for everyone's favorite game. Am I even on the road? The thing is, though, is like trains and subways are on tracks. And like the tracks have to be more or less pretty clear. But subways are underground, so they're fine. And then trains, a lot of the time, are capable of moving through the snow. And I'm not a huge fan. Like, when it's really snowy out, it can be even dangerous to be a pedestrian on the sidewalks. I mean, it already is, but this gets a lot worse. Citizen Shades, you said, I've had two stances on land use for the past 10 years. Less livestock. Oh my God, my leg fell asleep. God, that's what I get for sitting on my legs. Less livestock, less better utilized graveyards, minus cultural necessity, and more education around burial. Yeah, we've been talking about death and dying and burial a bit recently, and respecting the wishes of the dying. And I think that also being respectful of how someone wants to be buried is a big topic to have there. And I think that it's really important. Let me give you all the link again, just in case. Peak soil. No, not, yes, there we go. I picked the right one. I recommend this article. It's been a while, and I think that this is kind of ties in well. I think it's for the article, the Bloomberg one I was just sharing with you, this one works really well to kind of pair together, to think about going back to the image, like a lot of this land, the soil has been completely depleted. And it takes about 100 years for a single inch of topsoil to be developed. We can't really speed up the process. And so what we end up doing instead is using really nitrogen-rich fertilizers, but that is contributing to climate destabilization and environmental degradation. And you also have a ton of things like industrial runoff from these things, even just like what's in the fecal matter and the urine of a lot of these animals is not good. And it gets into the waterways, which then makes its way back into our bodies over time. And it's a lot, right? It's a lot. When we think about a lot of the other land, right? None of this, for example, none of this pink is really going to be good for farming. We've talked about why that's kind of rough, because most urban population centers, or most population centers in general, are along bodies of water, which usually means it's the most fertile ground. And so, but building on top of it usually means that the ground is so polluted that you would not want to grow anything. Like Rockland, where Citizen Shades and I grew up, you were basically highly cautioned against growing anything and eating anything because the entire town was an industrial waste site, basically. Which probably has something to do with why so many people from our graduating class have died of multiple cancers. Um, and and you're right, Dustin, most fertile and likely to flood, which we talked about before as well. And this is not to say that people made a mistake. This is just like all of human history, people have tended to want to settle near bodies of water, especially flowing bodies of water, because we need it to survive. And it's really, there's a lot kind of going on here when we think about if there's any breakdown in our ability to produce nitrogen rich fertilizers, which most of it today is produced through the usage of natural gas. And because these cows, this is not grazing on normal grass pasture, even though grass monoculture is not great, it's mostly livestock feed, which is mostly corn, which still requires that. So this whole system here is built on fossil fuels. And if there's any real disruption for any amount of time in that, the system is not very robust. It's not a flexible system. We see this with supply chain issues that have happened during the pandemic. The more efficient a system is, the less flexible it can actually be to shocks to the system. And we've created this very, very, very tight system where everything is really dependent on fundamentally fossil fuels. And it's not to say that it has to be that way. It's that the fossil fuel companies have lobbied for a very long time to make sure we can't imagine anything else and to maybe even make other things illegal or at least seem highly unprofitable. This is intentional, right? It does not have to be this way. We do not have to be that precarious, but we are. And I think that this really comes down to our very fundamental baseline autonomy is at risk because of the decisions that are made in many, many different ways by wealthy people with interests in making more money. And just how land is used is one example of this. Okay, so I found an article, I'm jumping around a lot today because I'm in the mood to jump around a lot today. And there's this article here. It's in preprint. I think it's actually coming out in December of this year. But I like, okay, Citizen Shades, you said the very first episode of Mr. Rogers featured an electric car back in like the 1970s and talks about how they'll soon be a reality. Yeah, I mean, electric cars, there are good points and bad points to them. With electric cars, they're still cars. At the end of the day, they're still cars. And needing like 1,000-pound lithium battery in every car. There's not enough lithium on the planet. We may create other batteries that have better capabilities, but like I'm pretty anti-car, even an electric car, because it's still fundamentally a car and it still has a tremendous impact on the environment. And it also means that, people end up having to have the money to individually provide transport for themselves versus other collective action. And to go back to what you were saying is that like the fossil fuel industry tried very hard to kill the electric car multiple times. There's even a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car. I haven't seen it, but it probably is talking about this exactly. Did Tibrani said corn syrup is an industrial byproduct of corn grown for other purposes, so that might also be a byproduct of the animal feed land use. Yeah, you're probably right, Tibron. And then Aradin, you said we just need to find a Stargate and get Nakata. Yes, I mean that would be helpful. There's some really cool things with. There have been some very exciting developments in fusion reactors recently. I'm pretty excited about it. If Charlie were here, since he is literally a physicist, I would have him come in and explain the excitement more effectively than I could. But anyway, going back to this here, this article, it's in the journal Case Studies on Transport Policy, and the title of the article is Implementing Bicycle-Friendly Transport Policies, Examining the Effects of an Infrastructural Intervention on Residents' Perceived Quality of Urban Life in Frankfurt, Germany. Yeah, my camera was in focus and then it went just back out of focus and I don't know why. It's being silly today. Let me see if I can encourage it to be better for a second. Nope. I'm going to just switch camera for a second. There we go. There we go. Better. No, thank you for letting me know, Aradin. Okay, Citizen Shades, you said, I live in New Hampshire now and I have to have a car. I fundamentally agree that cars would be nice to do away with if there's more robust public transit, but the freedom to travel independently is something I value immensely. Actually waiting for work on my car right now. Yeah, I mean, I think that, living in, I've spent sort of the last 20 years roughly, not 20 years, I'm not that old, 15 years living almost entirely without a car and mostly living in places like Asia and Europe where you don't really need one. And it's much more expensive to have cars in those regions. There's a lot more taxes on it. Getting a license is incredibly expensive. It's a little over $1,000 in most places to actually obtain a driver's license, and it's much harder to keep it, and it's just overall a lot more expensive. And I have the freedom to travel whenever I want, however I want, basically, because there's just such a good train network, even though like a lot of Europeans and Japanese people would complain about the train system and its inefficiencies or the ways in which they would be delays sometimes. I still don't have to worry about driving. I don't have to worry, am I too tired? I don't have to worry about, like, the trains here come every 3 to 8 minutes, so I don't have to worry about the train schedule. I literally can just like go to the train station and there'll be a train there very soon. I can literally take a train to Venice for the weekend. It's a night train, so I leave here at like 9 o'clock at night. I get there at around 9 a.m. in the morning, and then I can come back on the same train. And I have a ton of freedom, and it's cheaper overall because I don't have to pay taxes, I don't have to pay for insurance, I don't have to pay for gas, I don't have to pay for maintenance, I don't have to buy the car itself. And I can just go, and then I get to do something with that time, right? I don't have to just be focused on driving and maybe get to listen to the radio or a podcast or a book on tape or something. I can like literally just sit there and read a book. And it's, I see you saying that you're living in the middle of nowhere, and for sure it's harder. It's definitely harder. Like living in rural areas is harder, but I will say, like in Japan and in a lot of Europe, even the rural areas are incredibly well serviced by public transport. And the perspective there being the transport companies, how do I want to say this? It's already true that urban areas subsidize rural areas and especially subsidize suburbs, but also subsidize rural areas because of tax revenue. Let me give you all the source on this. This is also the thing I wanted to talk about today a little bit. But cities are subsidized. Yeah, let me just cities subsidize suburbs. Here's this video is really good. I'm going to pause it. Talking about the actual math of how cities subsidize suburbs and rural areas, and a lot of the way that the public transit can be also effective is by just embracing the fact that cities are going to subsidize it. So the public transit is really profitable for the companies that run it in cities, and then that subsidizes the not profitable public transit that is in the suburbs and the rural areas. Oh, or I don't know, chocolate chip pancake sounds amazing. Now I'm thinking that's what I want for dinner. So it's one of those things where, like in Japan, I would take the train out pretty often. Like I lived in the city, but I would go to this tiny island called Amakusa. I would go there almost every weekend because that's where my karate teacher was, and that's where a lot of my friends were. And I would spend a lot of my weekends out there. And or sometimes I would just go out for the evening because like karate practice would be out there, and there was like two dojos. There was one in Kumamoto City and then one in Amakusa, and I'd often go to the Amakusa one. And I could take the train, and you could technically drive out there, but it was actually slower to drive out there and really dangerous. Like there were a couple of areas where like there was this like cliff that people would regularly drive over, even though there was a pretty good wall, and you just like fall into the ocean and die. But the trains didn't have this problem. And I could like do whatever I wanted on the train. It was really nice. But there were several train stops where like they were kept in operation for like one high school student. And the perspective there being like this is what you use your tax money for, is to like make sure everybody has as much as possible access to these things. Now to be sure, like in really rural places like in Kumagun, which is where Charlie lived in Kumamoto, there was trains that could get him from Kumagun, where he was living, into the big city, but they only came a couple times a day. There was a bus system, but it only came a couple of times a day, but it met the needs of the people who lived there. And it was shaped around the lives and the needs of people who live there. So we can do that. So this, I really, I've talked about not just bikes a bunch of times on the stream, but this one here specifically looking at the math of how suburbia is subsidized. And the other one on this one here, which is Great Places Erased by Suburbia, specifically the third place, is I think really good. Both of these videos I super, super highly recommend. I don't know if I put this one in the chat as well. Citizen Shades, you say there have been some abysmal train projects in California and China in the past decade. Sadly, positive intent versus reality of planning and cost are usually at odds. Yeah, I mean, like California has had some special particular challenges, some of it being like Elon Musk intentionally trying to sabotage things. But like some of it comes down to good management. Like Germany had this huge challenge with their night trains. They had all these night train lines and they were not profitable and they were just like hemorrhaging money, and they gave it up. They were going to give up the night train. And Austria's ÖBB, or ÖBB, the OBB is how I would say it, company said, hey, Germany, or Deutsche Bahn, we will take over your night train project. Like, give us the rights to use these lines and these routes. And they just have managed it differently, and it's incredibly popular and incredibly profitable. So some of it comes down to like, are people managing it well? Do they actually do good like research, essentially market research, to know like where do people actually want to go and what percentage of people are actually going to take these trips? And like where high-speed rail, for example, would be helpful is, let me go to City Nerd. City Nerd is also one of my other favorite YouTube channels. I mean, like, I'm fundamentally very much an urbanist and anti-car, and I like a lot of these people. He's actually, an urban planner and makes some really good videos. And he has one that is about where it would make sense. Yeah, I think this would be a good video here where he talks about like the math of which uh, short airline trips would actually be better served by replacing them with bullet trains and would likely be incredibly profitable, and like which corridors would it actually make sense. There are some corridors where it would be less likely to make sense unless we're really talking about we've gone over the net energy cliff and we've passed peak oil. And so, like, energy production becomes something really difficult. But then we're going to have a lot of other problems. But we should be still preparing for that future because we will eventually, the energy return on investment for oil extraction will make, fossil fuels sort of prohibitively expensive. And the electricity generated by fossil fuels similarly. And I think we need to come up with do need to come up with other options. So this video is also, it's really short. As you can see, it's only like 14 and a half minutes, but it really goes into it. All right, let me go back to this article here. So this was research looking at when the city put in more dedicated bicycle infrastructure, did people's sense of their quality of life increase? And as you can probably guess, spoiler alert, the answer is yes. People actually felt a lot better, even people who were not primarily traveling by bicycle. And the highlights of the article is quantitative assessment of residents' perceptions after the implementation of a cycling-friendly infrastructure intervention. Pre- and post-survey results show improvements in residents' quality of life. Socio-demographic and daily mode use affect the residents' perceptions. Cycling infrastructure contributes not only to transport, but also to urban development policies. And so here, it's a really good paper. I really enjoyed reading this. I read it earlier today. And there's some good points here, like the overall aim of this plan is to improve the quality of urban life for residents. Specifically, it aims to increase the quality of stay in public spaces and the safety of all cyclists, for example, children and the elderly, as well as to reduce the negative impact of traffic on health. And it's really looking at how having more options for how to get around and more safe options is really useful, because if you get too old to drive, or you're too young to drive, and you want to travel across certain distances where maybe you could get there by public transport, but you would have to make a transfer or two, and it would like take a while. Like, there are definitely routes in Vienna, which has amazing public transport, where it's still just faster for me to ride my bicycle there. It would not be faster for me to walk, but like bicycle would be a really, really good alternative. And sometimes I really like that. And sometimes I'm like, there's not enough bicycle infrastructure here for me to feel safe doing that. So, this is really looking at how the article's long, but not that long. So I do really recommend it. You can skip the methods section unless you're really into methods, but it did have some good look at like how they were sort of interacting with city infrastructure and what they were actually trying to measure. And the conclusion is really good, and it basically just says like, yeah, it really helped with a lot of things, reduced, noise pollution, makes a big difference. Um, you know, there are lots of different ways that we can improve quality of life, and giving people more options is really, really important. Um, so, did Tiburon, you said, I have used trains for shipping moving boxes when I was moving years back. I think they were added to the luggage compartment of an Amtrak passenger train. Oh, yeah, I see. Citizen Shades, you said, I do wonder why more trains aren't multi-purpose freight and transport, or are there more than I realize? I think that there is more. It depends on what the freight is, because sometimes my understanding is like there's different types of tracks, and the different types of tracks affect the speed that the trains can go on them, but also like what they can carry. And I think that certain things can't come super close to population centers, except for maybe like last mile transport. Um, but it depends on what it is. I think it really depends. And I think it also depends on like who owns the train tracks. This is one of the things that's like, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is not centrally planned. It's privately planned, and then like land is leased from the local governments. And it's private companies a lot of the time that make these decisions, and that might own like the history of railroads, even just in the U.S., is fascinating. There's also, if you want to be kind of nerdy about it, there's this one episode of the sort of reboot of Unsolved Mysteries that just looks at like jurisdictional issues between the transit authority and like the transit police in the US versus local police when investigating deaths of someone who may have been hit by a train, and how that can it's really just a study in how ineffective policing can be, and like police officers can be. But yeah, it's an interesting episode. um okay, so I want to take a quick second to read this. I've shared articles from Brookings before, um, but I want to talk about, and I want to spend a couple of episodes after this one talking about third places some more, and what third places have to do with autonomy, and especially autonomy across the lifespan. So, a third place, as I mentioned before, is supposed to be a place that's not your school or your work, and it's not your home, that you can go to sort of enjoy life. They can be public parks and promenades, they can be cafes and bars, they can be, community center. Think the TV show Cheers. Cheers is fundamentally about a third place. It's a bar that has regulars where people get to know each other, where you get to, and it's supposed to be like within a neighborhood. So it builds community cohesion because it allows people to actually get to know their neighbors in a more meaningful way. People start to know your name, like the Cheers theme song goes, and people feel connected to each other. But it also gives you the opportunity to have more interactions with people you would not normally interact with. Social classes tend to mix more. People of different religious backgrounds tend to mix more. There's more sort of actual cross interaction in community spaces that would otherwise be quite siloed. And if you think about it, because of the way a lot of zoning laws work, people tend to, in their immediate vicinity, be grouped heavily into all your neighbors are likely to be of the same socioeconomic background as you. And that can also lead to more political and social stratification. And I don't know if there's been a study on it, but I have a strong suspicion that, like, if you've got fewer and fewer options for socialization, and you could drive to some place, but I'm going to back up for a second. One of the other things, going back to what I was saying earlier about development of friendships needing to include spontaneity and surprise encounters to really solidify friendship formation, that also it has to do with third places. Because third places, one of the benefits that they have is it allows for spontaneous interactions with people. But if you have to drive someplace or you have to reserve someplace that's less spontaneous, And you're going to be more likely to be worried about, like, I can't drink that much alcohol here because I have to drive home. Or, like, does my partner need my car? Or, all of this other stuff. And it just adds to these difficulties. So let's read this article a little bit. It says third places as community builders, and it was written in 2016. So it says, urban planners seeking to stabilize neighborhoods are focusing on the critical role that third places can play in strengthening our sense of community. Third places is a term coined by sociologist Ray Oldenburg and refers to places where people spend time between home, first place, and work, second place. They are locations where we exchange ideas, have a good time, and build relationships. So, exchange ideas is one of the big ones. There's a lot of cafes in Vienna that like have all this history to them because they're full of like, this is where Trotsky and a bunch of other revolutionary thinkers like came and hung out with each other. There's Cafe Central, which is like the most famous cafe in Vienna, and Trotsky went there, Stalin, Hitler, Freud, a bunch of famous poets. Like, it was just full, like Kafka and Proust and stuff. I think like basically everybody that people think about when they think of like that period of European history, people went there and had the opportunity to interact with each other and exchange ideas. And this is important because if I don't really have a place to go that's not my home or not my workplace, where I have to spend a lot of money to be there, it's going to be a lot harder for me to feel good about regularly going someplace. Whereas if I can go down to the local pub every day and I spend maybe like €2 over the course of an evening, sure, it adds up over the course of the year. Sure, it's not accessible to everybody, and probably you can't do it every single day. But it still allows you to have the option to interact with other people. And it also makes it so that, like, even if you don't want to really interact with people, you still have the opportunity to be around them, to do things like people watching. There's a lot of benefits. Rodney said, I just think about every sitcom has a third place connected to it. Yeah, I think you're right. I've not watched a ton of sitcoms, but the ones I have definitely did. Citizen Chainsaw or Patty's Pub. I've always been very introverted. I moved to the middle of nowhere thinking I'd be happier, but it hasn't quite been everything I'd hoped it would be. It's pretty tough after my mom passed earlier this year, too. I've been struggling to get out to see people. I'm really sorry to hear that your mom passed. I was literally just in Boston a couple weeks ago and went to a place right where she used to live, and I was like, I wonder if she's still there. But I'm really, yeah, I was just thinking about her. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Uh, it's also really funny that you call yourself introverted because like my experience of you was not that you were introverted, but then like I recognize that being an extremely extroverted person, I have a tendency to have friends who are all introverts and to date people who are all introverts. Uh, yeah, I just kind of tend to find introverts and be like, yeah, I'm going to take you along on whatever weird misadventure I'm having. Um, but yeah, yeah, I did not think of you in my head as an introvert. Um, and I will definitely say, adding to what Arad and you're saying, that the pandemic made me a bit more introverted. Mostly, I just feel that I'm out of practice socializing. Like, I go to a party, even like an outdoor picnic or something, or like when I've taught at these festivals in the summertime, I feel completely exhausted. Where normally I would just be like in absolute heaven. Like, I am a little bit the stereotype of the extrovert who is like, I want to snort cocaine off a park bench with 100 of my closest friends. Uh, because, like, yeah, that's just kind of, I have a lot of friends. 100 of my closest friends. And Citizen Shades, you added, she was 54, lung cancer for 4 years. It's left me feeling very alone in the world. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's losing a parent is really, really difficult. And yeah, I know, enough about you to understand why that would be particularly hard. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. Um, Thank you for sharing about it. And as a Rodden added, yeah, I can relate. I lost my mother a few years ago. And Chibron says, that's awful. Fuck cancer. I definitely agree. All right, let's read a little bit more here. For young Americans, many third places are now virtual. It's kind of like what we do here, from Facebook and chat rooms to group texts. But as Oldenburg notes, the most effective ones for building real community seem to be physical places where people can easily and routinely connect with each other. Churches, parks, recreation centers, hairdressers, gyms, and even fast food restaurants. A recent newspaper article on McDonald's found that for lower income Americans, the Twin Arches are becoming almost the equivalent of the English pub, which, after all, is short for public house. I didn't know that. Groups of retirees meeting for coffee and to talk. They might hold regular Bible study meetings there, and people treat the restaurant as an inexpensive hangout. And I think this is also why you can see in a lot of places, retirees who like the sort of classic, like bunch of, older guys who just like sit outside and shoot the shit with each other and people watch. That's another kind of third place, which is not possible with really strict loitering laws. Yeah. Also, I agree. 61 is too young. You know, it is really young. I'm really, yeah, surprised, Citizen Shades, to hear about your mom. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. Um, so how do third places build communities? Third places have a number of important community building attributes depending on their location, and social class and backgrounds can be leveled out in ways which are unfortunately rare these days, with people feeling they are treated as social equals. Informal conversation is the main activity and the most important linking function. One commenter refers to third places as the living room of society. Many city planning efforts to reinvigorate metropolitan neighborhoods now include specific steps to create third places, especially public spaces, to try and break down social silos. The greater Washington, D.C. area is an example. In an experiment in one park in downtown D.C., for instance, office workers can now reserve tables and chairs to meet or socialize. So, one of the limitations to this, and this is talked about in the Not Just Bikes videos, is that like you have to reserve it. So it ruins the spontaneity aspect, but it's also for work. It's for office workers to like sit outside to do more work. And third places are really essentially supposed to be places that are not about work. In nearby Silver Spring, Maryland, the Outbox is an experimental outside and wall-less festival equipped with Wi-Fi and seating available for people to use throughout the day. The elderly, so this is where it really comes around, are at particularly high risk of being cut off socially, and that is attracting the attention of third place innovators. For instance, Leading Age Maryland, a research and advocacy organization, is working with wellness agencies and architects to design senior housing within common space areas situated near transportation, non-elderly housing, and other community partners, such as universities and medical facilities. These efforts include cafe-style facilities targeted for seniors, but that are also attractive to the broader public. This is in stark contrast to the common pattern of creating self-segregated elderly enclaves with elaborate services but little contact with the outside community. So this is the thing I really want to stress here and kind of like hone in on. We've talked about how we have a world that is incredibly age segregated and the negative impact that that can have on people, the ways in which, our world tends to get smaller and smaller as a result as we age. We tend to have very little like cross-generational contact outside of, first-degree family members. We also tend to then experience less new things, to be less, exposed to different ways of thinking, to social and cultural changes. And this is not to say that like we've got to go and change all the minds of the elderly, but more that those are things that keep people alive and living longer. It's like having a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of purpose, the idea of like being needed, but also the ability to feel that there's still more to live for are things that have been well researched to be life extending. And also, it's really important for younger people to be exposed to elders, to get to learn from them, even if it's just to learn what they don't want to be. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, it's very important. Um, I see Detubron, you said, I lost my mom to cancer when I was in my 20s. I still miss her so much. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Aradin fought cancer indeed. And then she was 61, still too young. No, I see how it connected. I kind of missed some parts. Aradin, my mother passed due to a heart attack, but she had been struggling for a while due to damage to her lung from Hodgkin's when she was younger. I'm glad that I lived with my parents, so I still had my father. Third places seem like having a drop in, drop out framework would be important. Yeah, absolutely. And it also is a way to sort of like make sure that people don't become really isolated, both at any stage of life. It's one of the things that a lot of people really love about, people who live in a new area, especially like in student focused areas during university days, because a dorm allows for a lot more spontaneity. There are usually common areas that people can share. So it's not just being like holed up in your dorm room by yourself. You can go and be with a group of people. It's pretty still age segregated, but universities are not exclusively age segregated. You can find older and younger students, especially if there's any mixing between grad school and undergraduate housing. It can be really helpful. But then in the college town area around there, there's also tons of third places. Usually college towns have very good quality of living because there's usually public transport. It's human scale, i.e. walkable, and there's usually multiple different options for places to go and ways to spend your time. There's also more arts and more creativity, and there's more generation mixing. Where I went to university out in Amherst, there was the whole sort of like that Pioneer Valley in Western Massachusetts was just like this 5 college region. And it's this 5 college consortium, and there were other universities in the area as well. And it was amazing. Like, I don't want to move back there because I'm like pretty good with Massachusetts, but it was pretty great. So let's think about this third place idea while we play some Stardew Valley. I'm gonna have to move my other kitty. You can see Cutie has taken up residence right here. I've got this thing to she just made this cute little chirp because I like touched her a little. I've got this scarf here to kind of keep my hands warm when I'm typing throughout the day, and it's become my cat's new favorite sit spot. But I have to, it directly blocks my keyboard when my cats sit there. Give me just a second and I'll get Stardew Valley started.
Battery 100%.
And we'll go over to gameplay. So we didn't end up talking more about the book Final Gifts, but I think we can do that in a future episode. We have plenty of time for that. Give me just a second. I'm going to get everything set up. Where is it? There we are. Why is it so full screened? Sometimes things are difficult. Sometimes the everything like gets too big in size, and I'm like, why? Why are you so big? Okay. That's not perfect, but it's okay. It's fine. It's not perfectly aligned, but we'll manage. No, stop Windows. Sometimes Windows really just wants to like organize your windows for you. And I'm just like, no, please don't. All right. Let's go back to Castle Farm with Ariel. I gotta move my kitty so I can play the game. I'm sorry, cutie. All right, what were we up to the last time? I think that today is the luau. I think today is the luau. I don't remember what's a good thing to add. What's a good thing to add? I think every year I try and it's like never very good. And some years I just like poison people by accident. And I don't really want to do that again. I gotta pet all the animals. So I'd love your suggestions of what to put in the soup that's highly rated. There's another animal? No. Goose. All right. I think I pet them all. Destiny said, Windows, I'm helping. In my household, we use the term helpish when you try to help but did not. I think that's a great term. All right, and yeah, one of my kittens likes to sleep right in the middle of my bed, not to the side or anything, just right in the middle. Yeah, I mean, cats are just so goofy. I love them so much. All right, got some eggs. I gotta say hi to my dog. Gotta milk my cows. Yes. All right, what are you all saying about this? Tibron, you're making some nice high value stuff now. I'm sure you can find something good to contribute to the soup. Let me look into the wiki. Thank you. That's very lovely. And then Arada, you said I tend to end up sleeping on one edge or the other. I mean, that makes sense. You know, like you can't disappoint the kitties. No, I don't want to drink the milk. I'm trying to put the bucket away. And then Citizen Sage says, my cats are both 14 now. It's hard to believe since they're still so playful. That's nice. I'm glad they're still playful. That's, yeah, really good. I think that it can be really nice to have cats that sort of age well. All right, I'm going to put this egg in there. All right. What else we got going on? The luau has begun. I'm gonna go check on my crops real quick. Nothing's quite ready to harvest yet. Okay, good, good. I do have some cheese and stuff in the house, I'm pretty sure. Let me see. I got milk, I got honey. Pumpkins. Okay, milk. Iridium milk, that is what I shall bring. That sounds good. I gotta get that jade. Hey Pam, aren't you coming to the party? Bunny. funny. So obviously the Star Drop Saloon is like the main third place in this town. I think that it's a really good third place because it's brings everybody together. These events are also decent third places in a sense, though they're not very spontaneous because they're like planned. Poison everyone with dairy issues, yeah. Thanks for joining, Citizen Shades, and I hope you can join again in the future. Yes, and I hope you have a good day. Dustin, you said for Black Friday, there's a number of good videos on YouTube with Black Friday as a trap in the title. It definitely is a trap. Most of the time, things aren't actually on sale. Look sharp, the governor's here for his annual visit. If you brought something for the potluck, make sure to add it to the soup cauldron. One of the things I know you can add is the mayor's shorts. I'm not enough of a friend with Marnie yet to do that. Gonna get that star fruit because then I can make seeds. I think I already have star fruit though. I think I'm literally growing it. Elliot says, I woke up late, stepped out of the door, and found myself in the middle of all this hubbub. So this is not very consensual for you. I forgot that today was the luau. Leah, how's the farming coming along? It must be a busy season for you. Also, Aradin, thinking of the whole like poisoning everyone with dairy issues, I think what made me sick is I think I may have just recently become lactose intolerant. I'm not sure though. Marlon says, I'll be back here by the trees. The air is a lot cooler. I wish you could give gifts to people at the festivals. Governor, who cares? Yeah, I agree. Why should I care about some random old guy? Well, I don't want to be ageist, but Penny, we do this festival every year to give the governor a taste of everything the valley has to offer. Mary Lewis hopes it will get the governor on our good side. That's why he's so neurotic about the way the soup tastes. Yeah, I mean, it's just so rough. Linus, a slow, continuous rotation is key to achieving the perfect roast. Whatever Linus is roasting smells awfully good. Slurp. Yeah, I'm getting hungry just thinking about this. I do like that Linus is included, for sure. Harvey, good thing I came with sunscreen. Harvey, you're adorable. I wonder if Madhu could use some sunscreen on her shoulders. Yes, because even if you are not super pale like I am, you should still wear sunscreen. The Jeopardy said, my gas company had a little Black Friday icon on their website, which puzzled me. Are they offering a discount on gas used on Friday? I doubt it. Yeah. Clint, I'm full, but what else is there to do besides eat? You could talk to people. You could make some friends instead of just lusting over a girl you never talked to. Jody, I hope the soup is good this year. Yeah, sorry, I usually mess it up. Hey, good to see you. Kent, I hope you get some therapy. Caroline, I put fresh vegetables from my garden into the communal pot. Nice, nice. Pam, hey, free buffet. One of the perks of living here. Enjoy it, kid. Marnie, if you brought something for the soup, climb the stairs on the other side and throw it in. Okay, I can't talk to you. Gus, these blasted sandflies keep landing on the food. Future husband. So 1 year, Sam put a pound of anchovies in the potluck. Nice. Everyone wondered why Sam leaves the town and community, or ever wondered why Sam leaves the town in community service hours. Funny. Abigail, it's tiring to socialize with everyone. I'd rather watch the sea. I'm glad you can make that decision for yourself. Thank you for setting a boundary with me. Willie. Hi there, Ariel. Taking a breather? To tell you the truth, I'd rather be fishing right now. Well, you can do it. How do I say the wizard, though? Wizard! The Mer people are curious about your festivities. They become upset when you litter in the ocean. They're your festivities too, dude. You are part of the community. All right. Alex, perfect weather for a beach party, huh? I would say so. Haley, I would dance, but I don't want to get sweaty. I actually can relate to that. Vincent, I'm bored. Yeah, of course you are. Vincent isn't a good dancer. Yes. Yeah, probably. She's unresponsive. Yeah, she's just vibing so much. Oh, you stepped on my foot, dear. Demetrius, this is tiring, honey. Are you ready to visit the buffet soon? Pant. Yeah, difficult. All right, Shane. Wow, you don't get hot pepper chutney like this in the big city. All right, and let's go talk to George. How you doing, George? That music, it's too loud. Can't I have a little peace and quiet to enjoy the ocean? You can all the other days of the year, my dude. Evelyn, the smell of the ocean takes me back many years, long before you were born. All right, I think I talked to everybody. Let's give it a shot. Let's put some milk in the soup. You added large milk to the soup. All right, let's go see what they think of the taste. Should we move forward with the luau? Yeah, let's start. All right. Well, folks, it's that time once again for the potluck ceremony. I trust that you all put high quality ingredients in the pot this year. We don't want the governor to regret his visit to the valley. Well, Governor, would you do us the honor of tasting the soup? Of course, I've been looking forward to this all year. Oh, yes! I got a new achievement, new friend. Oh my, that's the best soup I've ever tasted. You're right, it's delicious. Okay, it's better than last year. Thank you to Timron for helping. Wonderful job, everyone. Now, who else wants a taste? I like the idea of the communal soup because it's something that like everybody has to try hard for. And also, it's funny that Sam put anchovies in. The governor wasn't kidding. The soup was out of this world. Time to head home. Alrighty. I'm gonna put the starfruit seed in there, and we'll see. May have already planted a bunch of starfruit, but that's okay. 20 jade, not bad. Go to sleep for the night, yes. My iridium pickaxe is ready. Oh wait, I gotta check the weather. And the fortune teller. I sense that a new viewer has joined us, a young lady from Stardew Valley. Welcome, welcome. The spirits are somewhat annoyed today. Luck will not be on your side. Okay, boo. Also, Charlie texted me that he didn't get the email from Twitch. Ariel, flip this letter over for instructions on how to make a super healthy meal. You'll feel energized. See you soon, Emily. Salad. Nice. All right, gotta say hello to my animals. And I gotta go buy new animal today. So I gotta get a pig. I'm gonna get a pig today. That's important. Pigs. Yep, it took me 2 years to learn how to make a salad, Krellin. It definitely did. I mean, salads can be complicated. Getting it so that they taste like good restaurant salads, that's actually a really complicated skill. All right. All the other animals gotta say hi. Did I get you all? Get you all? haven't heard from Silly Millie in a while. Like, the guy who hangs out with us sometimes. I hope that he's doing all right. I'm going to reach out to him on Discord since he hasn't been here in a while. See if he's good. Also, Ash and I are going to get together and do another podcast episode soon. Probably to talk about the debacle with the chili that happened on the internet this week. And also about the movie The Wonder. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's very good, very intense. Is that all my animals? I feel like I have one more cow that I can milk somewhere. Where are you at, cow? Brown cow. Oh, you're hiding behind the barn. Nice. Okay. Justin, you said, got all my Thanksgiving prep done. All I do is pop it in all in the oven. That's nice. Yeah, I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. I mean, some people, as far as Indigenous people celebrating Thanksgiving, I will say it really varies from person to person. Like, there's no universal, like, you're wrong if you celebrate Thanksgiving or you're righteous if you don't do it. It's not like that. It really depends. Thanksgiving's not my jam. I don't celebrate it, but it's not something I am against people celebrating. All right, all right. Let me get some mayo going. I do think, though, the only thing I ever think related to all this is if you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving, it's good to know the, like, true history of it. And it's not to say that, like, it's some big conspiracy or anything. I will be talking about the history of Thanksgiving this Sunday on the stream and relevant information. And I agree, Dustin, that it can be a great excuse just to enjoy some pie. And yes, Ditchibron, I did say the chili debacle. If you haven't heard of this, that is totally fine. Basically, a woman made a pot of chili for her new neighbors, and the internet lost its mind. And people were saying that it was like non-consensual of her to do that, and that like she was a predator, basically, and like they were saying it's the same as like all these other very abusive things. And people just had all these really interesting takes on it. And like, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. And about like, well, the thing is like, it also became like a Washington Post article where they brought in like etiquette experts to say whether or not it was actually appropriate for her to have made chili for her neighbors that she didn't really know. And I just have a lot of thoughts. As you can probably imagine, it's just one of those things where I kind of see it all as like a symptom of a bigger problem, which is that we're just very siloed these days. We're very like separated from our neighbors. And it's, I think, something that makes us really precarious. And this whole idea that like, yeah, I don't know, doing something kind of normative culturally and neighborly would be some huge violation is weird to me. But I have more thoughts on it than that, and Ash and I are going to chat about it. See, if you're not part of our Patreon, we do eventually put these things over when we remember to on other formats. But our podcast is basically released on our Patreon. As are a lot of other things. I'm gonna go get my iridium pickaxe, and I gotta go get some animals. Why? Sometimes I think I need a new keyboard because sometimes when I'm just like moving, WASD just kind of stops working sometimes. It's a nice keyboard. It's like very small. I got this in Japan and it's like a little portable keyboard. It's very good. Yes. Upgrade tools. I'm gonna hold off because I don't know how much the animals are. I don't want to risk not being able to get them. Rodney said, I know almost nothing about it from the little I've heard. It sounds more like the latest excuse for people to be outraged about something. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of it. I would definitely say that there's like a particular kind of outrage culture that is its own cultural capital online. Like, the more you can sort of analyze something and say why it's bad, but like, you can do that with literally everything. Like, if you looked at Consent Academy's tweets, which I'm the one who pretty much does all of it. Hold on. I'm going to get a pig. A pig. All right. What do we want to name this pig, y'all? Babe. You know what? That's a pretty good one, Rodden. I think that's pretty top tier. Anybody else got any thoughts? Or does everyone agree? Pig the pig? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good pig. Babe's a good pig. Oh, Oinker is pretty cute. Maple flavored. Oh, you know what? Let's just name it Maple. I like that. And I'm also gonna get a sheep. Let's do it. What do you want the sheep to be named? What do we think? What's a good name? Sam. Sam the pig. Or the sheep. We could do Sean. Sean the sheep. Baramu. All right, I like that. Let's see if I can type that. Yeah, it fits. Chipotle flavored. Oh my goodness. Dustin. You're silly. So yeah, let's think about this town. Oh, I can get the mayor shorts. Let's do it. And third places, so this town's main third place, right, is the saloon. And people are bringing their kids there. It's definitely very cultural. Like, there are definitely places in the world where, in a lot of Europe, for example, it's not unusual for people to bring their kids to a pub and um, it to be seen as like a mixed space because we do really age segregate in ways that I think are really harmful. And I think it's really good to be able to have sort of mixed spaces for different ages to interact and to kids to be exposed to alcohol consumption young so it doesn't become this like big deal where they're kind of likely to be weird about it when they get older. All right, upgrade tools. Steel hoe, let's do it. Let's do it. I remember that, Arada. Now that you say that, I do remember that. Exactly. It doesn't become taboo or forbidden. It's good. Like it's good to make it so that kids don't see alcohol as this like, super, secret thing that they're so, interested. 40 copper ores. I think I can do that. How many days do I have for that? 2 days. I'm gonna have to collect them. All right, well, let's just go to the mines now for a little bit. Yeah, it not becoming too taboo or forbidden, it loses a lot of its power, right? It's one of those things where it's like, oh yes, hey babe. Oh hey, Jan. I don't have anything nice to give you. I'm sorry, babe. Yeah, I mean, that's also true, Dustin. Give them a sip when they're six, problem solved. Yeah, like it definitely made me not interested in beer for a pretty long time because I was like, this is disgusting. No, thank you. Oh, wait, this is a Gold Star spicy berry. And I know that he likes, great gift, thank you. He likes a lot of these things, Linus. Whenever you catch a fish, take a moment to thank it for its sacrifice. Even if you don't believe in the spirit of the fish, it's a good mental exercise. We need to be aware of our effect on the environment. I totally agree. Yeah, it's also true. The like shock flavor change. Oh, it looks like the bottom of my screen is cut off a little bit on this stream. There we go. That's better. All right, let's go to like 25. And this should, hold on, I need to reorganize all of this so it's not a nightmare. Kind of came here with a bunch of random stuff in my inventory, but I got a bigger backpack now, so it's marginally fine. All right. Oh man, not being in the skull mines, it's so different, right? The skull mines are just so difficult. But third places, right? So you've got the pub, the saloon, and that makes a big difference. It definitely seems like there are events that happen there sometimes, but third places also tend to fill other social functions. Like they're often places where people go to get essential information about what's happening in the community. It's where people can go to get resources after a disaster. Like community centers often are good third places. Churches, though, you have to be part of that religion to want to go there. There can be limitations to any of these particular venues, but having multiple options, which then again increases the spontaneity. It's one of the reasons why the community center really is the only way to like really win this game, I feel, because then it allows you to create another third place for people because you have to spend money. I mean, I don't know how focused on it Gus is. Like Gus might be pretty okay with people from the town coming in and not spending money, but like he doesn't have that many customers potential like wise, so he probably really needs it to be, if you come in, you spend some money, but he's not going to expect you to like order a meal every time. Like you just get a coffee or a soda or something. And it's really nice because there's the saloon is serving several purposes because it's also got the pool table and the arcade games, and it's got like sofas and couches, so it's not just people sort of sitting in the main drinking area. And it's also technically mixed use because it's where he lives. But it offers multiple options for people to engage. There's also the music you can play, and that gives people a lot of potential for interaction with each other, and it makes a big difference. The library as well, to Tiburon, that's a really good point. Libraries are often good third places. It can be difficult if they really have to be there just to be really quiet. But if they have areas for like people to bring their children and the kids get to hang out and do stuff, or they have meeting rooms and like activity spaces. That then really helps it serve a lot of these other purposes really well. And it really does add up. Like, I want to stress that, like, the more you have options for third places and the more types of interactions you can facilitate at them, the better benefit there is for the community. And I remember we also read that research paper a long time ago that was saying that, like, the more you drive, the fewer friends and acquaintances you are likely to have. And third places can also help offset that, but they can't be places you have to drive to. Like, really needing to drive to them makes them a lot less inviting. It makes them, less comforting in a lot of ways. You can't relax as much because you always have to leave before you're too tired, and you can't drink as much alcohol, or, like, there's just a lot more that ends up being required of you if you're driving to a place. All right. Well, I'm about halfway done already. I'll go down a little bit further, maybe just until midnight, and then I'll go back. See if I can get much more ore. So libraries also can be really good, like community centers, because they can also play host to other events. So if I'm a library, I mean, not a library, if I'm running a library, I can invite outside writers and poets, and I can host places for, people to share their writing with each other, which then also gives people the opportunity to get to know each other in other ways. There was this sort of like bar restaurant in Seattle that we didn't go out very often because we didn't have very much money, but it's called Corvus, and they made really amazing pumpkin soup. And it's just like literally the best pumpkin soup I've ever had, and I get sad sometimes thinking about how I might never have it again. I'm a little bit dramatic, I know. But anyway, Corvus was really cool. It had a very cool vibe. It was very like, goth, with a name like Corvus. Yeah, of course it's going to be kind of goth. But it just really was lovely. I could walk there. It would be a bit of a walk. And we'd often take we could take a bit of a bus to get down some of the pathway to get there faster. But it was really easy to get there, right? Like, we could walk there and it would be maybe a 45-minute walk, which is a bit longer than you want for a lot of third places, but still pretty good for America, all things considered. And look at this. Look at all of this. All right. I'm not going to have time. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. To refill all of this, unfortunately, but I want to sell it before the end of the day. And just go ahead and do all that. Pretty nice. I got all of the ore that I needed. I'm going to put all the stuff in here that can go in here. I didn't mean to put all that in there. Good, nice. This was a good haul. So we would go there, and it was just very nice because it would be like 15 minutes if we took a little bit of the bus, and the bus really went like pretty close from where we lived to basically right there. And it was lovely because there would be like poetry readings and people would tell spooky stories, and they'd have these events, and it was pretty affordable, especially for Seattle prices. And then you also have things like mocks, which you bring up, Aradin. Real quick, I want to reply to a text message Charlie sent. I just realized that I saw the text message, told you all my response, and then forgot. One second. All right. Yeah, I like completely forgot to finish responding to I told you all my answer to his question. Very displeased spirits. Bummer, bummer. Oh, Ariel, I'm really glad you've become part of our community. I've enclosed a $500 or 500 gold check from the Stardew Valley Agricultural Fund to help you continue your good work. Maybe you can buy some more seeds with it. Sincerely, Mayor Lewis. So, it was nice because it was another option, right? Like the library hosted a lot of this stuff, but that can also be kind of intimidating for people. Like the Seattle Public Library was kind of like serious business. Everyone there was super fancy, and it could be really intimidating to try to, just do stuff there. And so having it like other options was really nice. Mox Boarding House was a very cool place, but one of the problems was if something wasn't very close to you, you really were kind of out of luck in Seattle a lot of the time. Oh my God, I'm just milking the air again and again. You really out of luck a lot of the time because it was just so far away. So Mox was great, but I very rarely went because it would take me like an hour and a half to get there by bus, right? This is not like the walk, right? I said that I could walk to this place in like 45 minutes. And that's not amazing, right? Like that's not what I would want to do every time. There were places that were closer but not as nice. Um, which was kind of rough because we were right in First Hill, which is right next to Capitol Hill. So we were very much like central action Seattle. And it was still kind of not amazing. Um, and there was a lot that could be better. I can't wait to get the greenhouse, y'all. I want the greenhouse so bad. That'll basically like double our farming area. And then we can farm year round. Um, Rodden, you said I'm in Canada, so it was very, very, very far away. Also, Tara is awesome. Dustin, and Seattle's library system is separate from the King County library system, so you have to have two accounts to function across the libraries. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. It took me a really long time to figure that out about Seattle. I did not understand for quite a while that that is what was happening. All right, I'm gonna put these. No, I think I have things I can pick today. So let me. We're not in the fall, we're in summer right now. Plant those in summer, plant those in summer. I don't know how much I can do, but let's just organize it a little bit. So yeah, it's Seattle's got a lot going for it. Like as far as a lot of cities go that are not like old cities, right? Seattle is just over 100 years old at this point. It had a lot going for it in terms of walkability and things being if you lived in the central areas, it was very nice. It was very nice. Ridiculously expensive, but very nice. But it's one of those things that like really added up over time where it just took so long to get places if you didn't have a car. And I've mentioned this many times, but like it was very easy to get just completely priced out of friendships because of not having a vehicle and not being able to afford to do a lot of expensive stuff that people would want to do. And it was very sad and it could get stressful and very frustrating, as you can imagine. But it was just one of those things where like Seattle has so much promise and it just does not deliver on a lot of that promise, unfortunately, because of the poor public transit and how car dependent it is. Um, and yeah, I think it would have been nice if Citizen Shades could have stayed longer, because I would have loved to talk about how he mentioned that he's very introverted and he thought moving to the middle of nowhere in the country would be this big sort of boon and would be exactly what he wanted. And then now that he's in a very isolated area, he feels that it's very much not what he wanted. And I think that that's really also important to talk about, because we've talked a lot about how we can think we want something and then realize we don't actually want it. This is one of the problems with consent a lot of the time. I can consent to something thinking I know what it's going to be like, and then it ends up being nothing like what I imagined. And I need to be able to like change my mind and say no and all of that, of course. But it also means that, like, did I really have full understanding of what I was consenting to? It's not to say that if someone doesn't like something, it means it's immediately like a consent violation. It can be more of a consent incident. And I also really want to stress that a lot of times when we talk about consent, people are afraid to admit that maybe something went wrong with consent, because there's a tendency to believe that if something went wrong with consent, that basically means you're like an evil monster, and not just consent is difficult and there's no perfect way to make sure it's always good for everybody all the time, and things go wrong, and it's just life, and nobody's a bad person for things not being perfect. But those are controversial opinions sometimes. I mean, it's very much the core tenets of Consent Academy's philosophy. Like, we have very strong beliefs that consent is also about discovery, and that things can go wrong with consent without us needing to sort of like label people evil. That there's things called consent incidents, which are their own unique situation that is important to recognize and respect. Can I find Clint today? I wonder. All right, I'm putting these bombs down here because I do not want to risk accidentally bombing everything. Rodney said, yeah, I wonder if there's a connection between third places like bars and cafes and the notion of having to go somewhere you pay. Hi, Wisteria. Welcome. Pay for, especially given how much of it is focused on in media. Yeah, I think that it's tough. There's like a couple of So Vienna has a decent number of third places because it's just so mixed use. Like several apartments that we looked at getting but ultimately didn't take were literally like in the ground floor was a restaurant. And this place has businesses, like there's a doctor's office in here and a couple other things, I think technically. Are you in here, Clint? You are. I can bring you my copper ores. You brought the ores I requested. Thank you. I like to expect local ores from time to time to keep track of the quality and abundance. Just let me take a look at these. I see. Thank you. You can keep these ores. They're of good quality. And here's your payment as promised. Nice. Nice. What are my other quests? Oh, I gotta bring Mayor shorts. I still have those. Let's go bring those to the mayor. Mayor will be so relieved. I also like the idea of consent collision as well, Wisteria. Like, our perspective is someone's consent was violated if they feel it was violated, but even if consent was violated, that doesn't immediately make you a predator or like an abuser or something. You found them. Where? Oh, there. I have no idea how they could have gotten there. Cough. This stays between you and me. Got it? Cute. Mayor shorts. I did it. So aquatic research, I need to bring Demetrius a pufferfish, and strange note, maple syrup to the secret woods. All right. Pufferfish, that's definitely an ocean fish, and it's raining, so I think I can catch it today, but I don't remember. Oh, look at all this coral. It's always nice when it rains because you can get so many other things. Look at all this. This is great. Let me check on something real quick. I wanted to see what is left that I need for the community center. So I need large goat milk, which I have. Oh, I can go bring that to the community center today. And wool. And then the pantry will be finished and I'll get the greenhouse. Fish tank, I need a wood skip. And I need a sturgeon. Pantry, bulletin board, truffle, which the cute pigs will help me get. Rabbit's foot, I need to get the bigger coop. Fish tank, I already looked at. Pantry. I'm getting close, y'all. It's getting really nice and close. Let's do a wee bit of fishing. I'm gonna look it up really quick. I want to find out where I can get the wood skip because it would be really nice to get that Stardew. Only live in pools in the deep forest. The wood skip is a fish that can be caught in a pond in the secret woods. Okay, cool. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. Let's go to secret woods then. I'm gonna go home and get some maple syrup, put some things away. That'll be nice. So thinking about also, yeah, consent collisions, things go wrong with consent. But one of the things that's really helpful is having an actual relationship with people. And this is something we've talked about a lot with a lot of these social issues. The more you actually have a relationship with people, the better you'll be as an ally, the better you'll be as a friend, the better you'll be as a neighbor. Like, you don't have to be friends with everybody. That's not what I'm saying at all. And it's okay to dislike some people and to not want to interact with some people. That's also completely valid and you're allowed to do that. I'm never trying to say that like you have to like so and so or interact with so and so. Like there are plenty of reasons why it might not be safe or it might not be pleasant, and there's good reasons to not do it, and those are all valid. What I want to say is though is that it's important for people to have the ability to actually build a relationship. You know, if we never are interacting with each other, or we only interact with each other in very transactional ways or in ways that are very, very limited, like if we don't trust our neighbors, we don't interact with them, we think that someone who wants to bring us cookies that they made is like a piece of shit for some reason, you know, it's just, we're never going to build community that way. Uh, and there can be ways in which people do it non-consensually. There can be ways in which it gets weird, for sure. Yes, maple syrup bear. Yes. So nervous. That smell, come closer. The bear picture is so cute. Hey, it's not every day I get to speak to a human. Looks like you've got a little forest magic in you. Now, about my note, did you bring the good stuff? Oh, that smell. This stuff is really sweet. It's my favorite sauce. It makes me very happy. Big heart. I love it. You've made a friend today, Ariel. I've got something special I want to show you. The bear left you with his special knowledge. Salmon berries and blackberries are now worth 3 times the gold. All right, I gotta get my. Gotta be able to fight these slimes. Oh my goodness! I can put the fiddlehead fern in. Are you kidding me? They were here. For some reason, I thought I could only get them in the lower parts, the like special levels in the skull mines. All right. Nice. Now, if we only get a sturgeon, we'll be able to do a lot at the community center today. That'll be very exciting. Carp. Yeah, you're right, Ditibron. The force magic is the non-consensual drug dosing that the wizard does to us. Catfish. All right, sturgeon. Come on, sturgeon. Carp diem. Yes. I see some bubbles. So after I catch this, I'm going to go try to get the bubbles. All right, let's see if these bubbles. Oh, of course they end. Oh, still no sturgeon. Let me try shallower water. Still a carp. Come on, sturgeon. Oh my goodness. Difficult. I bet you this is going to be the sturgeon because it's hard. I gotta catch it. I gotta catch it. Oh my goodness. I was so close. Oh my goodness. Come on. Yes. Nope, catfish. Bummer. Another catfish. I mean, it's raining, and I think you get more catfish when it's raining. But yeah, thinking about third places, it's just really important for there to be the ability for there to be cross pollination. If you never get to talk to people of different social classes and different walks of life and different perspectives than you and different ages, it's not good for society. And it's not to say that like the most marginalized people need to just go and educate everybody and everything has to be put on their backs. Like that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that generally speaking, there's going to be a lot of intersecting identities, and people need the opportunity to realize that we have more in common than is different, and that, like, we're not the enemy of each other. And I think that a lot of online rhetoric really pushes back against this idea and tries to say that, like, I should always feel comfortable with every person I interact with all the time, or this is fundamentally wrong. And like, there's definitely this idea that has become very popular, which is that you should always feel comfortable. and that like anything that makes you feel uncomfortable means you're getting triggered, means that you're being harmed, means that the situation is wrong or bad. And like I do want to point out that right to comfort is part of white supremacy culture, which is this idea that like things should not make me feel uncomfortable, and that tends to just serve the people who already have the most power. And that tends to make it so that people can shut down anything that would challenge their worldview. And I think it's really important that we have options. Um, I think, I mentioned that the community center is really the only way to win this game, because if you go the JojaMart route, it's not going to create a third place, right? I got a wood skip, y'all. I did it. I do think that I already got catfish for the community center. I might not have. Let me actually check. Yeah, I definitely have. But wood skip and the large milk. Oh, Shane. Oh my goodness. A plate, huh? Here, have a cold one. See, look at this chance encounter. Ugh, life. You ever feel like no matter what you do, you're gonna fail? Like you're stuck in some miserable abyss and you're so deep you can't even see the light of day? Shane, it's called depression. I just feel like no matter how hard I try, I'm not strong enough to climb out of that hole. Fast drinker hut, woman after my own heart. Yeah, I also love that Aradan, a massive cup. Just don't make it a habit. You got a future ahead of you still. Well, my liver's begging me to stop. Better call it a night. See you around, Ariel. See, look, this is a great example of that like chance encounter, right? Which is that we got to just share a moment with each other that built more connection. It was brief. It wasn't like we sat for hours doing like intense, like vetting of each other's essential character. We just had a passing interaction. A beer was shared. We chatted a little bit. Shane was vulnerable. That's a huge deal. And Shane saying that he doesn't feel like he's strong enough to fix his problems by himself, that's normal. That is very, very normal that we need each other and that people need social support. And there's so many things out there in the world that are really competing to tell us to shut each other out, to segregate ourselves, to become more and more individualistic, more and more isolated. And that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. But it really decreases our ability to set boundaries with the world. It decreases our autonomy. It makes things a lot more precarious for us. We need to be really careful about it. So I'm gonna bring this fiddlehead fern, this wood skip, and I need a large goat milk. I think, and I agree, Aradan, the town definitely needs a therapist because it's like really an essential life service. People who can support people who are struggling, and it can't just fall on like the community to hold everybody, because there are going to be things that happen that people can't take care of, right? There are going to be things that are outside of people's expertise, things that people don't know how to make right or to support. And it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with people not always being able to be there for each other in every way all the time. It's also quite normal, right? There are people who will ask me for help on things where I'm like, I have no idea how to help you. Or I have this like a very limited way I could help you, but do you actually want that? Because you might say you want to help, but if I can't give you the kind of help you need, we need to communicate about that. I mean, a lot of this comes back to the idea of informed consent, right? Which is, are we actually sharing enough information with each other so that everybody can give an authentic yes or no? And, if we don't really have any connection to each other, if we're really siloed, it's going to be much harder for us to be able to answer that question. And third places are just so essential to building community level consent, like for a lot of reasons, and having multiple options. Not everybody's going to like going to a cafe or a pub. They might be overstimulating. They don't want to be around alcohol. They don't like the smell of coffee. You know, there are a million different very, very valid reasons why someone might not want to go to any given particular sort of place. And they're all completely fine. And there are also, you know, things that we can do to offset that. All right, let's do one more day. Aradin, you said, especially if you are male and then you're supposed to be rugged and self-sufficient, otherwise you're not really a man. Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult because this self-sufficiency idea is, I think, why a lot of people, and this the way it's tied to masculinity, this is not me talking about Citizen Shade's comment, but just more generally, I think a lot of people feel like if I just can go be alone by myself in the woods somewhere, I will self-actualize and be a lot happier. But as we talked about, for a lot of self-actualization, we need support. Maple bars, yes. That sounds really good. Good humor today, spirits, but I'm going to the community center after I do my chores. Oh, I learned how to make spaghetti. Spaghetti. Oh, look at this. I got so many animals now. So many animals. That was a deep moo. All right, I gotta pet all of these ducks. All right, I think I got them all. Go collect some eggs, duck feathers, it's great. Gotta put out, that will be good. I will put out, what am I doing? I don't need to have these all out, I don't think. So I'm gonna put those over here. And I'm gonna put out some more hay. So for the next time we need it, it's already ready. And yeah, I don't know. I just, you know, my heart really aches for people a lot. Like, I just want people to be okay as much as possible. And not like I want people to be okay and like I want to save them myself. No, I want to create structures so that everybody can live however they want to live. Right? Like, I don't want to try to say, I know what's best for you, and therefore I can organize your life in the way I see fit. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it would be really nice if we had other options. Did I get everybody? I think so. And all I want is for people to have options. But currently we don't really live in a world where in many places people don't have options, and that hurts all of us. I'm trying not to ramble too much today. But yeah, I really just want people to have the ability to make more active decisions about their lives and how they want to live them and to feel good about it. I mean, that's really like one of my biggest motivations for doing this kind of work. Also wanting to prevent harm, right? Like there's a lot of harms that can happen that I think we can prevent through good discussions about consent. I'm so excited. We're going to get the greenhouse. We're going to get the greenhouse. Yes. Both of my cats are chilling out with me. It's really great. They're both just like, yeah. All right. Nope. No, I got the wood skip, not the sturgeon. Specialty fish bundle. Ooh, dish of the sea. And I need, what is it? Sturgeon. Sturgeon. I should look up where to get the sturgeon at some point. Enchanter's bundle, not yet. I can put this fiddlehead fern here. And then I'll have to wait for some of the other stuff. But I can finish the pantry. Yes! Bundle complete. Ooh, another cheese press. That's nice. Look. Oh my goodness, they're so cute. So many wonderful bundles. Thank you. Thank you. Look at that. Like it's got a community kitchen. Like this is just so amazing. So just like this is a great example of how the third places serve so many purposes, which is that like people can come here and get food and cook together. There's also a place for kids to interact and be. Oh, okay, Rodney. So the sturgeon is a fish that can be caught in the mountain lake and wilderness farm during summer and winter. It is least common during rainy winter days, only possible using a rain totem, and most common on rainy summer days. All right. Thank you, Aradin. Yes, look, they're just following me around. It's so cute. I like putting a lot of the prizes that you get into the community center because I think it's just really important to like I'm gonna give to the community center. But look at this, you could have group meals here, and this is a place that's free to interact. And you know, I think it's one of those things that's really important also with the idea of food banks is like food banks I think also can really benefit from becoming third places themselves, not just a place where people go to get food. There was on Jordan Klepper, I think, just did a thing through the Daily Show about this food bank that's like a free grocery store where you pay what you can, and a lot of people pay nothing. But the grocery store parking lot is also like an event space, and there's a DJ, and people from the community come there together and they interact with each other. And it's, I think, really important to have that kind of thing to really, really make it possible for people to come together, especially when people are getting help from the community, building those ties bigger and making it so people feel connected and not just like I'm kind of getting some sort of like charity from this sort of disembodied, you know, other that is maybe outside of the community versus a place that's like, no, this is a nonprofit and we're kind of building it and working it together. And this is amazing. All right. Fall and or winter and summer. So it's summer right now. Rainy summer days. Yesterday would have been a good day for it, but maybe I can get one. Carp. Oh man. So yeah, just giving people options, making people feel like they are embraced by a community, that they're not alone in things. I mean, I think about, you know, I see a lot of people talk about defending, you know, certain types of meal delivery services, like intermediaries to do delivery of restaurant food or people to buy groceries. And I think that these are great services. And I think that they do fill a really important gap for a lot of people who are disabled or have other kind of barriers to being able to go and get food. And especially to get, like, if you live, oh, a largemouth bass new record. in a food desert, and or like it would just be prohibitively difficult for you to get to a grocery store to really get food, or you've got, any kind of disability that would make, because there's not accommodation. The disability doesn't make it harder. It's the structure that we've set up that makes it harder. And having the ability to have a person go and buy the food for you and then deliver it to you is really amazing. And that is something that actually should be a public social service, because so many of these apps are, really preying on people who are also very marginalized, usually very poor, often immigrants. There's a lot of exploitation happening there. And, my liberation cannot come on the backs of other people's exploitation. It's not radical or revolutionary if that's what's happening. And we really need to be honest about this. And I see people sometimes want to say that, like, if you criticize these apps, these services, you're basically being evil because don't you see how many people it helps? And it's like, sure, it does help a lot of people, but a lot of exploitation helps a lot of people. We all profit off of other people's exploitation to varying degrees. Okay, don't lose the fish now. I got the treasure chest, important. And, there are other options, and we can have them be cool, ornamental fan. We can have the other options be ways in which the community is actually there for people and shows up for people. But it can also be, things that the community pays for. But it can also be public social services that are funded through taxes, where that's still a way to build community. And I think like Meals on Wheels is a good example of this, which is, like that's a publicly funded program. Oh man, Neptune's Glaive. Is that better than what I'm using right now? 30 to 45. No, but it's still pretty cool. I wish I could display it in the house. Largemouth bass. Yeah, Rodden, I do think a lot of it boils down to don't make me feel bad for liking or enjoying this thing, but I also think it's a bigger symptom of like the individualization of and the individualization of responsibility, which is kind of like what we've done with climate change, where we say like, it's not the world's biggest polluters who are mostly responsible for climate change, even though it is, and we focus on like how many flights are you taking a year, but a lot of the time it's like, do we actually have other options? Are those other options actually reasonable? Like if I have to go somewhere for business, for a work thing, is there actually structure within working culture for me to take a train there, if there is even a train available? And a lot of the time, no. And so it's not, but we like act as though it's all about this individual thing, and it's all got to fall on the individual to make the right, morally clean decisions. This is one of those things. It's all about a certain type of moral purity, which is that I think it's why some people, get into the oppression Olympics and try to say like, I'm more, marginalized than you, therefore I have more right to speak on any given issue. Which is sometimes really valid. Sometimes it is. Like, if I'm talking about my own experience of my own oppression, I'm going to know more about it than, somebody who doesn't experience these things. Absolutely. But there's still this idea of like, I need to be morally clean in order to be above criticism, because we have this very binary bias where it's like, if I am meritorious of any criticism, I am therefore a bad person. And I think a lot of people get really afraid of anything in their lifestyle being considered to be not morally pure, because that means that they're a bad person. And so I know I've kind of repeated myself a little bit in this, but the point being is I think a lot of people get really afraid of the idea that, would you look at that? I got it. Let's go put it in the community center. Got the sturgeon. Feel really afraid of like genuine critiques of things like these apps that really yes, they make a huge difference for the people who need them, and they are filling a much needed to be filled gap. That was not grammatically correct. A gap that really needs to be filled, but society needs to be filling it, not tech bros who just want to exploit people more. And yes, I don't want to say to those people, you just have to wait until like the benevolence of society catches up with your actual needs. That's also not at all what I'm saying. Look at that. We finished another one. Look at this. I'm so excited. Look at them. I get to make them happy twice today. When we're done here, we'll return to the other worlds. Look at that. There's a little mat in front of the fish tank, and it actually looks nice now. What do I still need for this? I need just a truffle and rabbit's foot. Okay. I think that's all I need left for the community center. A truffle and a rabbit's foot. You're right, Aradin. I think that, people really are focused on this binary, and so they get really afraid. Hey, Caroline, today I'm just going to relax and think positively. Do you ever take a day off? In this game, no. And I think that again, it just makes everything more difficult. And it also makes it harder for us to, admit limitations because it's not possible for any of us to be perfect. It's just not. We're all going to do things that are harmful to some people sometimes. We're all going to make mistakes. It's okay. We're all going to be like, not the perfect whatever. It's literally not possible. But if we hold ourselves to that standard, it's something that then you have to like constantly police, right? And it becomes a thing of fear and like a precariousness of like your place in society being dependent on this moral purity that's not actually possible for any of us to meet. And it just becomes like a hot mess real fast. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just a mess. And we've just really leaned into it and we don't have to. Just really don't have to. Let me just put all this in there for now. I got a lot of fishies. I'm gonna sell all the iridium quality fish because why not? Because I get so many fishies, I kind of am just good with selling the iridium quality ones. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Ron. There are very few things that are truly a binary, and like we would be well served by moving away from that thinking, moving away from being like kind of dependent on a certain type of binary thinking. But it's a cognitive bias, right? So because of the cognitive bias, it's something that's kind of hardwired into the architecture of how we think, it seems. But I think that we can take steps to offset some of its impact. All right. Let's go see if the greenhouse is all set because I'm very excited to have a greenhouse in this game. It's not, I think it'll be repaired in the night, which will be very exciting for the next day we all are here, next week. It'll be really good. Oh my goodness. Starfruit is ready. Would you look at that? I'm going to plant a ton of seeds and look at all those blueberries. I was just thinking like, oh my goodness, I've got all these empty kegs. What am I even going to do with all this empty keg space? Well, I got starfruit. I got so much starfruit. Would you look at this? This is exciting. So yeah, just thinking about how it all kind of plays out together. All of these things are connected. This is one of the things I hope that if you follow this series, even if you've missed episodes, if you were just getting into this series, I do recommend going back and like watching earlier videos in the series because it is all very connected. And I want everybody to understand that, like, how, urban planning is done, things like car dependence, things like local elections are all connected to every aspect of autonomy, because it's how we're building society together, and we're constructing like what it is people can say no to, and like how many options do people have to say no, and does no have some like big cost associated with it, if it's even possible. But then also just sort of like how many decisions are we going to be able to make for ourselves at different points in time. And I think it's really important. How precarious are we? The more precarious we are, the more at risk we are of being exploited. I mean, that's just facts. Um, all right, I'm gonna hold on. I need to exit this so I can reorganize some stuff in the inventory. Get some seeds going. All right. Let's see if this is good enough. All right, this is nice. So yeah, like the more precarious we are, right? It's easier to exploit us. It's easier to make it so that we can't actually say yes and no to things. It's just very coercive. And that's not the world I want for us. And I also agree at zero-sum thinking, really seeing things as like either you win or you lose. How many days? 14 days to mature. Yeah, I can go ahead and plant the corn. I don't really want to do it right now, but like it's kind of fine because I'm gonna get this greenhouse. And so, especially the stuff like the blueberries and strawberries that just constantly will produce more, like that'll be good. And look, I still have room left over. Oh, I can put some sunflowers down. What am I gonna do? Look at all this. I got tons of space. Well, next week, I've got so many blueberries. It's good. Next week I'll have to make sure that I go to Pierre's right away and get more seeds for a lot of this stuff. It's very nice though. Yeah. All right, let's put all this stuff in there. This is great. We're gonna be okay for keg stuff for a little while. Nice, nice, nice. Alrighty, alrighty. Pretty good. I think I can sell a little bit more cheese in here and maybe get another round going for the morning, which would be nice. All right, let's do that. Oh my goodness. Okay, real quick, you all need to see my cats. I want you all to see them. Look at that. Look at their little faces smashed together. They're cuddling on the heater and they're so cute. Okay, it might have been really shaky. But anyway, getting back to it. Does this improve your fishing? It does. Nice. I'm going to put it in here. It's getting kind of full. All right, let's go over to my fishing refrigerators and just see if it adds up to anything. I think I made like a ton of sashimi the last episode, so I feel like I've kind of worn some things down. Let me put these fiddleheads in there. Is there no seafood anywhere? Like there's no just place. Yeah, okay. I got this pike still to put in there. Forgot about it. And I'll come over here and I'm gonna put this duck egg in there. Thank you, Aradin. Secret note to Haley and Emily. Hope you two are doing well. Oh, Haley's birthday was today. We've sent you your favorite cakes, pink case, and sunflowers. For Haley, gemstone, and wool for Emily. Are both their birthdays today? I don't think so. Oh, right. Haley's birthday was today. I could have given her a coconut or a sunflower. Oh well. Look at that! We're getting it! I'm so excited! Look at all of this profit. Pure profit. I'm a good Ferengi. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop here for today. Thank you all for joining me. If this is your first time seeing our streams, consider giving us a follow. It's totally free and it helps. If you don't already, check us out on social media. And we do have a Patreon with some exclusive content. If you're interested, it helps support ongoing free consent education. We do offer a lot of free things. And I do want to let you know, starting in the next year, all of our support groups will become monthly rather than quarterly. And so your Patreon subscription or following us here on, or subscribing to us here on Twitch helps continue to support free consent education. And then check out our website. We have a couple of classes coming up still. This Sunday, we have how to make a good apology. We're going to teach that class pretty frequently, so if you can't make it this Sunday, don't worry about it. Also this Sunday, we're going to have a stream that I will talk about Thanksgiving and the history of Thanksgiving. And then the following Saturday, we have Consent and Leadership Beyond the Ban. If you want to learn about different options for accountability, you don't have to be in leadership. Even if just in your own life you've made mistakes and you want to take accountability for them, there are things in between, you know, doing nothing and removing yourself from society. We've got other things coming up on our calendar. Anyway, it was really lovely to hang out with you all today. Thank you all for the lovely conversation, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. Bye.